If you would have asked me 3 months ago, my conversations with folks around the federal election were whether or not the Conservatives win a majority or a minority government. And that sentiment, as you said, seems to have very much shifted. And with it, perhaps, has come a degree of frustration. Now I'm pointing to that recent Angus Reid poll, suggesting that upwards of 30% of Albertans would actually vote to leave Canada if the Liberals were to form government. It's something that Alberta's Premier is listening very closely to. She's come out several times now saying that post-election she would like to host a What's Next panel, essentially touring the province, asking Albertans about the biggest issues and grievances they have, whoever might win this provincial election, and says she'll put those major issues on the table, including something like a separating from Canada to a possible referendum. Now, that all being said, though, political analysts tell me that the recent polls suggest that support for the Liberals in this province are actually much higher now, double now, than what it was in the 2021 election. So perhaps not all Albertans are upset to see that shift.
Let's talk about the races that are heating up. There are a couple new seats in this province, so they've got 37 seats that are up for grad. We should say in the last time around there were 34 seats. Most of those, except for a handful of them, went to the Conservatives. So what are some of the hot races that we're watching?
Yeah, certainly the major cities are going to be where the Liberals are going to try to focus that support. So Edmonton and Calgary, including the riding that we're actually in today, which is Edmonton Centre. I've been told that this is a very competitive three-way race. Actually, there is also a very competitive NDP candidate in the riding. Interestingly enough, this riding of Edmonton Centre has actually sent MPs to Ottawa from both the Liberal and Conservative parties in recent years, and I'm hearing that it could go Liberal. Also, a potential win for the Liberals could be Edmonton Southeast. That's where the Edmonton Mayor, Amarjeet Sohi, is running this time around. So he's obviously very well known in this city. He's also formerly a Liberal MP under Justin Trudeau's government, so trying to secure support yet again for the party. Interestingly, political analysts tell me that if you look south to the city of Calgary, they could actually see 4 ridings go red in that.
4 ridings?
Yeah, so they're looking at a northeast as well as a north riding and 2 in the central area. Those 4 ridings, if won by the Liberals, significant gains for them, up from just the 1 seat that's held by George Chahal currently for that party.
Okay, and important to note sort of the urban-rural divide here in Alberta. You've got 2 cities that are over 1 million people, Edmonton, Calgary. The next couple of cities are under 100,000 each, and then that rural vote seems to be very strongly blue still.
Yeah, certainly. When you look at that electoral map, I think we're still anticipating that we will see that sea of blue outside of the major cities. What will be kind of interesting, though, is what has changed since the last election is a massive population boom in our province. So in 2023 alone, the province welcomed more than 200,000 people, a lot of them coming from places like British Columbia and Ontario, so with them bringing some different voting patterns. So it's hard to say how that might all shake out, but a lot of those people settled again in the major cities, so we could see some support for parties outside of the Conservatives.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, and this is this idea of separation. The frustration from the west to the east has been there for decades, but I don't remember it being as loud as it has been in previous years. You know, depending on who you're talking to, it's either separation or sovereignty, but this idea of enough is enough seems to really have taken hold. Do you get a sense that it's stronger, louder, more organized than before?
Well, it's interesting because we hear about it a lot, and we even hear about it from our Premier, as I mentioned. She wants to hold this panel and talking to Albertans and saying she's taking very seriously the grievances that they might have post-election, saying perhaps the door isn't entirely closed on this idea of separation. Now, there does seem to be some real distancing around this idea of a 51st state. That's something that she has come out saying is fairly ridiculous. But we are hearing from other voices, like former Reform Party leader Preston Manning, who penned that op-ed in the Globe and Mail recently, saying that a vote for the Liberals could be a vote for the West to want to separate. And as I mentioned, that Angus Reid poll. So there certainly are those sentiments. There's a question as to whether or not it's growing, though. I've talked to some political experts who study this arena who say that the support for separating isn't as high now as it would have been post-2021 election, and says that it's more of a vocal, angry minority that might be making up that voice.
But there is potential for it to spike depending on what the results of this election are.
That will certainly be something we're watching, and again, what comes out of this What's Next panel that the Premier hosts presumably over the spring and summer.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.